Well, 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 it's Mr. Beat here. We are 6 days out from Election Day. Holy crap. Election Day 2024 is almost upon us. That's why I've been particularly busy the last few days. I've released a few videos, a supercut of every single presidential election video I ever released, in case you missed it. It's 5 hours and 17 minutes long. I released a video about every October surprise in American political history. I have a video planned for this Friday about the 5 most lopsided presidential elections in American history. Yesterday, I released a video about the worst polling prediction for a presidential election in history. Spoiler alert, it was 1936. Alf Landon totally was going to defeat Franklin Roosevelt in 1936. Everybody knows that, right? But yeah, I'm tonight doing something more fun. Also, I'm just trying to the newbies don't even know I have a video about every single presidential election in American history. And I have a book too. Oh, where's my book? Oh, hold on. Yeah. This is the book I wrote. I basically took the scripts and I adapted it into book forms, and it's in color and there's maps and stuff. It's cool, I guess. You can buy it if you want, but whatever. Also, something I really wanted to announce before I get into what I'm doing here with this live stream. On my Discord server, which I will add a link to it in the description and pinned comment, I have a channel now where you can make suggestions for my upcoming 2024 election video, which I will release probably in February, assuming things don't get crazy. I hope they don't get too crazy in November, December, and January. So if we still have a Democratic Republic, yes, the plan is to release the presidential election video of 2024 in February, probably around President's Day, like I did with the 2020 video. It probably will be another long episode. I know we're biased to think that we're living in historical times, but legit, I think we are living in historical times. I think that the 2020s will look back on it like, oh, that was a transformative time, exciting time, a lot going on, big changes, especially politically. And I want to hear your suggestions, not only for what should I include in the video in terms of facts, but music. What song should I pick from this year, 2024? So many of you want me to include the Kendrick Lamar song, Not Like Us. However, I think we can do better than that. So please head to the Discord server, check out the 2024 election channel, make your suggestions known. I've been looking at that almost every day. So, and what we're doing tonight. What are we doing tonight? Well, I was supposed to begin this live stream at 8 p.m. Central. It's currently 5:33 p.m. Central. The reason why I bumped it up is because we're in a tornado watch. It feels like April here in Kansas, which is kind of freaking me out. Yesterday, it was 90 degrees out, and tomorrow is Halloween. I keep telling my kids, this is not how it used to be. It's usually not this hot outside. And now we're having April-like weather, which means it's like tornado season again. Regardless, it's going to be storming probably in a couple hours. So that's why I bumped it up. If the power goes out, that's what happened. Just so you know, if you see me just all of a sudden it just goes out, that's probably what happened. But I don't think the storm's going to come for a couple hours. So I think we should be good. So what are we doing? We are not counting down. We are, we're counting up. We're looking at the best comments underneath my presidential election videos. So your best comments. Here are 4 highlights I put in the thumbnail that may catch your attention. Yeah, so we're going to go through every presidential election video. I've gone back and read over a bunch of the comments, and a lot of them they just so happen to be the highest ranked, the most liked comments. But some of them are more obscure, and I just thought that, it'd be fun to look at my favorite comments for underneath every single presidential election video that I've made. And remember, I started this series in 2015 actually technically the end of 2014. It was around Christmas of 2014 is when I made the first episode of the presidential election of 1788 to 80 or 1788 to 1789, the very first presidential election. And then I just released them chronologically, and the goal was to get them all done up to date before the 2016 election. And I barely made it. Basically, in the fall of 2016, I didn't sleep much, but I finished the series just in time. And then this was back when my channel was pretty obscure, like more obscure than it is now. And I had maybe 2,000 subscribers at the time, but I did have like, it was also the first time where people were watching my channel for fun. So it wasn't just students in a classroom that teachers were forcing them to watch my videos. You know, it was just like kids that were interested in American political history stumbled upon my presidential election videos and they started watching. And so I started getting comments. I'm like, whoa, you're just watching this for fun? So it was really 2016 was a big year for my channel. It didn't mean that I got a lot of views. However, it was like when I first started thinking like maybe I should try to take these videos a lot more seriously. Maybe someday I could even do this full time. And here I am 8 years later doing this full time. Actually, that 2016 election, the day before the election, or maybe it was the morning of the election, I did a Reddit AMA, Ask Me Anything, where I said, hey, I just finished a series going over every single presidential election in American history. Ask me anything. That was so successful that it made the front page of Reddit. And so that got me like 4,000 new subscribers, maybe 5,000 new subscribers in 12 hours, just like that. So I went from like 2,000 subscribers to 7,000 subscribers within 24 hours. It was amazing. And this was the first thing that really kind of put my channel on the map. Anyway, so yeah, but a lot of the newer watchers, they have no idea that I have all these presidential election videos. So that's partially why I do this, to kind of hype up those older videos, which most of them kind of suck. Let's be honest. I've gotten a lot better at editing and storytelling since then, but you know, I'm also really excited to make the 2024 election video. I've already written an outline of a script. Obviously, it's still being edited because the election is still happening. And I'm probably going to have some time to reflect after it's over with to make adjustments, because first and foremost, I try to be as neutral as I can. You guys all know that I am not a fan of Donald Trump. I hope you know that. I announced it the other day officially. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, though. I voted third party most of my life, but I will just tell you that, yeah, I am not a fan of Donald Trump, and I don't think you should vote for him either. But if you choose to, whatever, I don't care. I'm not going to take it personally. Doesn't make you a bad person. You're a good person. I keep saying this over and over. Donald Trump supporters are some of the coolest people I know. We need to stop demonizing them, because they're good people. And so stick up for Trump supporters. You can attack Trump all you want. I attack him all the time. But yeah, so I did make that official. I lost probably a couple thousand subscribers immediately. Whatever. That's what happens. You know, we get really emotional when it comes to politics. I made a video about this, actually, why we get so angry when it comes to politics. You know, it's like I'm attacking you as a person. I'm attacking your identity. And I just want to tell you, like, you should be able to vote for whoever you want. You should not feel bad for who you vote for. But you know, on the flip side, I don't think you should make me feel bad because I'm not supporting your candidate. Most of you have been incredibly kind and understanding, and I appreciate that. I'll be taking questions as I go through these. So it looks like I got some super chats already. Thank you, LA. Let's look at oh yeah, look at this. Okay, so yeah, this is also a time to maybe some of you want me to elaborate on my position on Trump, or maybe there's anything else about elections. This is a great time to ask me. Let's see what you're saying here. Oh, Apollo Creed. I like the PFP. It's unfair that I can't watch you and VT8 streams at the same time. He's doing a stream right now. That son of a gun. I had no idea he was going to stream tonight. Punk. Actually, he probably knew I was going to stream later, and then I just all of a sudden bumped it up, so it's not anyone's fault. Okay. Hojo, thank you. I used to binge watch your American election videos years ago, and I wanted to say that they are still pretty good videos today. Oh, that's nice of you. I am like, I don't think they're that good, but thank you so much for these super chats. Oh, Derek. Wow. Thank you. How did you predict Trump will win? The misery index goes up and the GD number went up. Actually, no. If you go back and look at the data, the GDP number it was still going up, but it was going up at a slower rate. And inflation, I think, bumped. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but what happened was we predicted that it was not going in a favorable direction when you compared the current numbers that were right before the election in 2016 and the overall numbers of 2015. I don't want to pull up the data right now because I feel like this will take too long, but if you want to send me an email of how you got to that, I will gladly look at it. I am mr.beast@gmail.com. Yeah, so just remember, unemployment rate also like is the three things we looked at was GDP per capita going, not necessarily going up, but if it was going up at a slower rate, that also hurts the incumbent. And then if inflation goes up, unemployment goes up, that also hurts the incumbent as well. That's how we predicted that the incumbent party, which at the time in 2016 was the Democratic Party, would lose. And that was before I made a video about it. We did that in my economics classes when I was teaching at Tonganoxie High School. Shout out. So anyway, yeah, shoot me an email if you want more details as far as how I came up with those numbers, where I got the data, etc. Oh, it's Tyler. Hello, Tyler. Good to see you. Oh, that's a creepy PFP. Now I'm going to have nightmares. Okay. Hi, Mr. Beat. Love your videos. Thank you. I was wondering if Biden was still running, would you predict the Democrats would win the 2024 election since the economic data would still be the same? This is a phenomenal question. I would have to still pick the Democrats, which is insane because Joe Biden was not a good candidate. Horrible at communicating. It doesn't matter what he has accomplished. So much of why we choose somebody for president is how they communicate. And Biden just really struggled, and he still struggles to even just talk. I mean, look at his flub last night where he was it's like trashing people that supported Donald Trump, even though I don't think he meant to say it, but it sure sounded bad. So yeah, like I don't know. I don't think it would be the same. I think it would be one of those situations where it would be like, yeah, we have an atypical election. And so this would probably be the exception to the rule for the first time since World War II, because we've been tracking this data since World War II, going that far back. This would be the first time that the data was wrong. So yeah, it's a very good question. But yeah, I still think Harris is going to win, by the way. I'm still standing firm on this. VMan 29397. Thank you, Mr. Beat. Loved your DC versus Puerto Rico video. One of the few, you are one of the few to acknowledge Puerto Rico has a sizable conservative population, though I don't see it being a state as sovereignty is rising and they may elect PIP to Gov House. Okay, so I think you're talking about they'd rather be an independent country than be a state of the United States. Yeah, I mean, there are conflicting polls. The data is kind of goes back and forth. The last referendum in 2020 did show that the majority that voted anyway said that they were for statehood. But yeah, you're right. Like the new results could be totally different. So it's up to them. It's up to Puerto Ricans. Many of them there do not want to become a state still. And yeah, I'm glad you brought up the fact that if it joined the United States officially as a state, it would be, I mean, it is part of the United States. Let's make that very clear. Puerto Rico is part of the United States. Puerto Ricans are American citizens. But if Puerto Rico does become the 51st state, that's no guarantee that they're going to be a blue state, because there are lots of Republicans, lots of Trump supporters in Puerto Rico, which I don't think a lot of people realize. All right. Thank you, Synonymous, as well. What's your thought on Jill Stein? I think she is not going to win. So I get that she's passionate about the issue, specifically with what's going on in Gaza, what Israel has been doing to the poor folks that live in Gaza. However, she's not really. I mean, why didn't she run for local office? You know, she had all these opportunities to do this all these years. She ran in 2016. She ran in 2012 for president. There's a certain point where if you're not gaining any momentum or traction, why are you still doing it other than just for vanity purposes, for just like staying relevant as much as you can? So I don't think that highly of her anymore, especially when I think Trump is such a dangerous candidate. I think that another Trump term would be dangerous for our country. Cyvlog, hey. Oh, you have been here since the early days. I always look for Cyvlog comments. I've always appreciated you supporting my channel, and you're from a different country too. You're from the UK. That makes it even cooler. Like I appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Side the Puzzles guy. Hey, my dad and I binged every video. We love it. Polk Coolidge legacy video soon. They're very underrated presidents. Okay, you may be surprised to hear this, Cy, but I already have a video about James Polk, about him, and it's actually called The Most Underrated President in American History or something like that. So you can check it out right now. Is it as long as my Truman video or George Washington video or Andrew Jackson video? No, it's not as in-depth, but it's something, and I think you'll like it. Coolidge, yes, I'm planning on a Coolidge video probably within the next year or two, I would say. Thank you so much for all your support, everyone. Whoa, we got another Lawrence viewer here. Well, thank you. Wow, represent. So be careful with the storm tonight. As a democratic socialist, thank you for teaching me about the economy. I understand you disagree with socialism, and that is fine. I respect your decisions. It is human to have preferences. Thank you. Well, thank you. Yeah, like if anything, I more align with social democracy than democratic socialism. What's going on predominantly in Northern Europe, countries that are heavily capitalist, but also have a strong social safety nets. So I'm sure we agree way more than we disagree. Thanks for the super chat. Blake, you have a long history of trying to avoid bias. I appreciate you taking a bit of a stand on this election. Yeah, I went way back and forth on this. I texted other YouTubers, in particular, JJ McCullough and I went back and forth. Atunshai, I was like, what should I do? I feel like now that I am an influencer, I kind of maybe have more of a responsibility to speak up if I think that my country is in danger of electing a guy who would not only hurt my country, but in my opinion, but hurt the world. And so I still am conflicted about it. But thank you. That's reaffirming. So thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. Oh, down in Wichita. That's where I'm from originally. Okay, well, stay safe down there. Hopefully you have a basement in Wichita. Will, thanks for the super chat. I doubt you'll see my comment because I only posted it last night, but I wish you would do a video on tariffs and the history of them. Apparently, I should have done this video a long time ago because there are a lot of poor folks on social media that think tariffs are a good idea. And I'm just like, okay, did you not take a basic economics class? It's almost embarrassing. But yeah, I guess we'll have to do that, won't we? Because I just feel like the reason why I never made that video is I guess it's almost like saying, hey, did you know that drinking water is good for you? You know, like making a video about why water is good for you. I don't know. But I guess that's necessary because so many people are mistakenly for tariffs. And we even have Trump who is running on raising tariffs, which, oh my gosh. You understand how damaging that would be for our economy. It would be devastating. I mean, I know I joke around about tariffs, but it would be devastating. Now, fortunately, the president doesn't have that much control over tariffs. That's Congress. But just the fact that he's mainstreaming this stuff, wanting to take us back to the 1800s, is embarrassing. Do you stand by Harris winning despite her campaign taking a turn for the worse in the past weeks? Also, why did you not say Lincoln was a top 10? Oh, Lincoln is definitely in the top 10 now. I would say he's my 10th favorite, actually. I made a TikTok about this, 2 TikToks about this back in the day. I still have issues with him in another video I explained, but he's still, I mean, you can't deny he's one of the greatest presidents of all time. Anybody who doesn't have him as one of the greatest, I think, is just trying to be too edgy. And admittedly, I was trying to be a little too edgy too when I first excluded him out of the top 10. In retrospect, I probably shouldn't have done that, but okay. He's now in my top 10, but barely. Now, Harris winning despite her campaign taking a turn for the worse. That's based on polls. The polls have shown that she just now has a narrow lead over Trump. As Alan Lichtman has said, polls can be extremely misleading. There is always a margin of error. And so, yeah, I'm still confidently saying she's going to win based on the economic data. What tier in the tier list would you put Trump in? F. Yeah. Stay safe from the storm, Mr. Beat. Also, did you see the latest polls from Kansas? Trump is ahead by Kamala by 5%. Oh, yeah, that's one poll. You think Kansas is shifting? I mean, look, in my opinion, Kansas is still going to vote for Trump. However, I do think that it's going to be a lot closer than it was in 2020 and especially 2016. So, yeah, you could say it's shifting. Anecdotally, I know I have friends that are Republicans who are, for the first time, they live in Kansas, for the first time voting for the Democrat for president, Kamala Harris. So if that tells you something, that's anecdotes. Plus, you see less Trump signs around here than you used to. You see less Trump flags, which that's Hey, I should probably point out that I'm drinking Wonder Beat. Not a sponsor of this video, but it's a great name of a drink, and it tastes good. Goodness, I can't believe I got all these super chats. I wasn't expecting this. Sorry, I'll get to the comments of the election videos here soon. Thank you for all these. Jack, thank you. Stay safe. Oh, you already. Oh my gosh, I just saw you. I just read your. My brain is glitching. Harrison. Oh, I know Harrison. Check out Harrison's channel, representing the great state of Ohio. He has a great couple of videos about Cincinnati, the history of Cincinnati, Ohio. I enjoy them. What was the least important election since 2000? Definitely 2004, I would say. Yeah. Because we remember in 2004, the candidate who would have won, John Kerry, would have kept the course in Iraq. He would have kept the course in Iraq. Just like Al Gore would have probably been pressured to go to war in Iraq as well. I think we can't discount that. The war on terrorism has been mostly bipartisan since it began. So you could also say 2012. Yeah, 2012. Great question, Harrison. Malik, thoughts on Muslim Michiganders supporting Trump? I think that they are unfortunately misguided, because if Trump gets elected, that's going to lead to probably more innocent Muslims dying in Palestine. So, you got to be pragmatic at a certain point when we only have 2 options, because we don't have ranked choice voting yet. Although we could be getting it in 5 more states here after this election, by the way, pay attention to that. But yeah, is there going to be bad things happening either way? Probably. Keep in mind that as president of the United States, you still have not as much control as you think over what Israel does. Geopolitics is complicated. Congress also is the one who approves of spending. So when you're saying, oh, that president will send more weapons to Israel, Congress is the one in charge of the money. The president, Biden, he's approved all of that spending and sending weapons to Israel, unfortunately, in my opinion. But yeah, like, I think it would be much worse if Trump was president. I think you'd see a lot more innocent Muslims dead if Trump was president. So hopefully they don't vote for him. Christian, thank you. Any recommendations for self-care to help keep our head on straight during these last few days before Election Day? Keep up the awesome work. Well, thank you, Christian. I would say always think big picture. As somebody who studies history and is a fan of history, I'm always thinking back pretty far. I'm always trying to look ahead really far. We get caught up on the breaking news, the news cycle. So the best thing you can do is just not pay attention to the news. And I say that as somebody, who Ground News is a sponsor regularly for my channel. You can check in on them maybe once a week, I guess. But other than that, there's no reason. If there's something that's really important, you're gonna find out about it. So please don't pay attention to the news. Avoid social media. The only reason why I'm on social media, frankly, is to promote my channel, promote my videos, promote education, specifically history education. I'm just constantly thinking of ways to get more people to learn history. And yeah, I have to do it to promote my videos. But if I didn't have to do all that, I would not be on social media, especially I would not be on Twitter. Are you kidding me? If you want to be on social media, clearly Threads or Blue Sky is superior. So yeah, avoid news, avoid social media, touch grass, get outside, exercise, walking, swimming. I lift weights. That's my best stress reliever ever. It's the best way to relieve stress. Eat healthy, get lots of sleep. Jakester, will Trump force citizens to conform or else to the national in-group? This is also known as fascism, by the way. He didn't want to say the F word. What should we do if Trump wins? I think we shouldn't just assume that Trump will become a fascist. There's a good chance that he won't if he is elected. However, pay close attention to who he surrounds himself with, because a lot of those people are going to I would assume, try to make the country a lot more socially conservative and Christian. And remember, we have a separation of church and state. And so I think that's what I would be looking for with anytime they're trying to inject religious beliefs into government. That's what I would be most on the lookout for in the beginning. He's also probably going to want political revenge. So does that mean he's going to go after, those members of Congress that have gone after him over the past few years? Probably. But does that mean he's going to do it illegally? I don't know. It's hard to say. I would just say that we shouldn't jump to the worst conclusions here. It is kind of scary to think about, but I'm more concerned about culture, like the whole culture, just us as a society just saying, yeah, we're okay with the bully being in charge again because, oh yeah, the economy will be better. Remember, the president has little control over the economy. So yeah, I do think that's a bad reflection, especially to the world, saying, oh, we're okay with putting somebody that is amoral in charge again. Somebody who's clearly a narcissist who only cares about himself, puts himself over the country, over the Constitution. Yeah. What do you think Trump will do if he loses? He will deny the results, and he'll probably flee the country because he's going to go to prison probably if he loses. And that's a big reason why he's running, by the way. It's not brought up enough. He's running to avoid prison, but also political revenge. Hey, Mr. Beat, how do you think voter demographics will change between 2020 and now? Well, I bring up North Carolina a lot because North Carolina, so many new people have moved into the state from other states, in particular from the northern states, Midwest and New England. So that's why I think North Carolina is actually probably going to swing to Kamala Harris. Other demographic shifts, I think that, I mean, Florida, I just think that it's just been further and further to the right. I don't see that changing. So people saying, oh, the Harris has a chance in Florida, I just don't see that happening. Most other states have been relatively the same. What's kind of crazy, I follow the channel Geography King, and he looks at census data a lot. And we have noticed both that there's not a lot of migration compared to previous decades. And there might be a change, like more and more people moving to the Midwest from the Sun Belt because of climate change, but that probably won't pick up until at least the 2030s. So at first we had like a bunch of migration because of the pandemic, but then that didn't last very long. So the main thing is a lot of the demographics is kind of the same in terms of like internal migration. Immigration has been pretty constant too, like about 1 million. I think it's about 1 million new immigrants legally entering the country every year. Why do third-party candidates only run for presidency but never any other offices like HR, Senate, or local races? It's to gain attention. The best way to get attention is to run for president. So if you want your party to gain national media attention in particular, you can just go for the big one. Go big or go home, basically. Now, the long game makes more sense to win local races, and that also shows you're a little bit more serious because you're putting in the work. So I have more respect for like the Forward Party because they also are a fusion party. They support mostly Democrats, but they also support third-party candidates and sometimes even Republicans. So they are more pragmatic, and I think I'm more drawn to the more pragmatic third parties. I've been really frustrated with the Libertarian Party, who I used to really be a big supporter of, because it seems like they have just not been that serious about winning local elections, and it's just been disappointing. I boop and farted. Thank you. Just wanted to say thanks for the great content. Also run for president. I don't want to run for president, but thanks for the super chat and the kind words. I continue the latest polls on Puerto Rico's status in its governor race. Poll has a 2.9% margin of error, and the Independence Party candidate Juan could win. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, feel free to send it to me. Again, my email is imrbeat@gmail.com. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm almost caught up here. I got a few more. Oh, wow. imrbeat@gmail.com. Thank you, Derek. You should do Penn Central v. New York. Mrs. Kennedy helped galvanize support and prevented the mass renovation of Grand Central. It also mandated a government say in historic building renovations. Okay. I'll look into that. Write that down. I have heard of it, I think. Thank you, Train Guru. Sounds like you have a train channel. Banjo playing Bison. I love Chase Oliver. He has no chance either, though. He's way better than Jill Stein. I think he's my favorite candidate, third-party wise. Although I do like Cornel West as well. But yeah. Derek again. You should have your updated 2024 prediction since the unemployment numbers is 4.1 and inflation is 2.4 and GDP is yeah. The unemployment data basically is still positive. I've kept up on it. If it changed in a negative direction, then I probably would have had a special live stream to update everyone right before Election Day. So it's looking pretty good for Kamala Harris. Braden, what can normal people do the day after a Trump re-election to protect our institutions? Go to work and I mean, I guess just keep doing what you're normally doing, you know. Also, like, remember that when you go to the grocery store or the gym or wherever, even voting booths now, you notice everyone's getting along, right? There's no tension. I mean, everybody's cool. Remember that a lot of times we're seeing like the most extremes in social media and in corporate news media. So I think even January 6th, that was like an extreme group of people. So the vast majority of people in this country are not like that. A lot of the provocations come from foreign countries, like it's been shown now. There's been research to show that some Russian interference has happened in terms of trying to get Americans to hate each other based on politics. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Reagan from Jefferson City. Although we're supposed to hate each other, Kansas Missouri rivalry. Oh, I love Jefferson City. I spent some time there a couple of years ago. We were biking on the Katy Trail. Actually, that's cool. It's a very underrated city in Missouri. We were also in Columbia recently. Do you still practice Catholicism? No, I'm not a practicing Catholic anymore, but pretty much the vast majority of my family still is, and I respect that. Is there anyone that you think should run for POTUS? Jon Stewart, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Let's see. Probably the vast majority, like I would say, most people that I would say it would be futile because they just don't want to do it. So, but there are plenty of people that are smart and capable. In terms of like politicians, like, I don't know, Katie Porter, I still like, even though she's exiting Congress here after this current term. So thank you so much, Kevin. Charlie, Jimmy Carter, 2024, one more term. Why not? He's eligible, man. Oh, Nathan, hey, good to see you. Still feel that Harris is going to win? Yes, I do. And yes, I'm still planning on a Mormonism video. It's been delayed because of the election, but after the election, I've already put together some notes for it. And I forgot you were going to help me in some way. I don't remember how, but feel free to reach out to me and I will look at whatever you send. Oh, Kevin wanted to ask me a question. Okay. Do you think Harris should have gone on Joe Rogan? I actually just tweeted about this. Yes, she should have, and she still can. She should absolutely go on Joe Rogan. I don't care if most of the viewers don't like her. That's even more reason to go on there. You got to try to win them over. You got to try to, basically change their minds, make it at least so they see you as a human being, because a lot of them don't see her very positively at all. In fact, they say some pretty nasty things about her. Logan, Trump increased drone strikes by 400% bombing in Syria, Afghanistan, and supports Israel bombing Iran's nuclear facilities, but is less hawkish. Yeah, whoever said that Trump is anti-war doesn't know what they're talking about. I made a video about this recently. Thank you so much, Max. And that's from Canada. Thank you, Max. The questionnaire. Would you support I'm assuming you meant proportional electoral college? Yes, it would be better. It would still not be ideal, but it would be better. I'm willing to accept any kind of compromise. Any kind of reform is better than what we currently have. Yellow letters. Any chance Alaska goes blue? I doubt it, but if it does, oh boy, it's going to be a landslide for Harris. I mean, if Alaska goes blue, that means Kansas really does have a chance to go blue, because Kansas isn't that much further behind in terms of how red it is. Thank you, Mace Effect. Elon, hey, thank you. One thing that scares me about a Trump presidency is the justices Thomas and Alito might quit SCOTUS, and he appoints their replacements for 30 plus years. Yes, this scares me too. Yeah. Aiden says, how much do you bench? My max all time was 340, but I haven't done that for a while. But I still bench regularly. I use a Smith machine now because I don't want to injure myself. And there have been times where nobody was around to spot me, and it was kind of scary. So why do you ignore Trump said march peacefully? I don't ignore that. He did say that. Does Harris still win with the latest GDP data? The GDP data is still positive. So it's basically, it's still up from the previous quarter. So the adjusted number is still up from the last quarter. Law student from India. Please make more Supreme Court briefs. It helps me a lot in law school. Also, Harris for president. Okay, I will. Actually, I have 2 plans already for before the end of the year. So I know a lot of people have been asking, like, where did Supreme Court briefs go? I haven't made an episode for a while. Well, if you look at my last episode, it tanked. So come on. But I appreciate you supporting those videos, and I'm glad they help you as a law student. That means a lot. Tanner, what's your opinion on Elon Musk supporting Trump? Well, Elon Musk will gain a lot of money if Trump gets elected. He'll get more subsidies. He's a bum. He gets all kinds of handouts. One of the biggest bums in the country. Taxpayer dollars go to his companies. SpaceX, Tesla, even the Boring Company. The guy gets subsidies, okay? Corporate welfare. So he's gonna support whoever gives him more money. It's that simple. If you're trying to complicate it. Now, I don't think he believes a lot of what he says in terms of the culture war stuff. Elon doesn't care about most of that stuff. I mean, his daughter, I think you could say there's an element there where I think she's maybe he has a daughter that's oh no, wait, does he have a daughter or son that's transgender? Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think there's also some of that element might influence his culture war stuff, but generally he just wants to save money. So I don't think we should complicate it that much. Oh wow, what a username. How will history replace the term lame duck after witnessing 8th year in office, kamikaze magpie, scorched earth goose, World War III chickadee? I don't know, but those are all notable suggestions. I got a text here from Mrs. Beast. She's probably like, why are you not? You need to get off these questions. Let's see what she said. You need to get off super chats and get to the live stream topic. It's starting to storm. Okay, Mrs. Beast. All right, sorry. If we have time here at the end, we'll get back to the super chats. She's right. Let's go here. So we are your best comments. This is why we're here. And if you just joined us, we are looking at my favorite comment underneath every single one of my presidential election videos, starting with the very first election, the election of 1788 to 1789. That's right. It lasted into a new year. And that is, oh, by the way, I have 2 categories for these. 2 categories. One, the first category is comments that just make me laugh. They're funny. They're witty. You know, they're entertaining. So the entertainment category. The second category is they are educational. They are fun facts. They are things I did not know when I was researching the election before I made the video and before I wrote my book. So yeah, those are the 2 categories. This first one is a fun fact one, it looks like. Here, let me change how this looks on here. A bit different. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Can you still see the comment there? I don't know. We'll try that. Jeremy said, it's fun to look back at this very first election and see last names like Lincoln and Clinton. Obviously different people, but still interesting to know we would eventually get a Lincoln as a president and a Clinton as a president. Just had to wait 70 years and 200 plus years. Lol. Yeah, so that's an insightful comment on the very first election video. And remember those first 2 elections, George Washington was virtually unopposed. Really, it was just a fight for second place, who would be his vice president. This is before the 12th Amendment, so before they were running mates. So yeah, that 1792 election. I'm pretty upset, George. This is Caron06 says, I'm pretty upset George Washington won. I wanted George Washington to win because he's so much better than George Washington. There were a lot of comments like this, but this was my favorite of those. 1796, this is the first real election in which we had, George Washington finally steps down, and we have, his vice president and his vice president's biggest rival, who also was part of the George Washington cabinet. They worked together, and John Adams wins, but guess who's second place? Thomas Jefferson. And so they awkwardly are sharing the executive branch together with Adams as president, Jefferson as vice president, even though they disagree on most issues. Meester Tweester says, imagine campaigning against your brother. You would have so much dirt on him. So this is in reference to the Pinckney brothers. They both ran as Federalists in this election. I mean, they put their names in the hats. It's not like they were that active campaigning, but still funny, you know. It's the only time in American history where this happened, by the way, where you had two brothers in the running for president actively at the same time. Remember, Jeb Bush ran in 2016. This was after George W. Bush had already been president for 8 years. So, and then the extremely hostile election of 1800. I got so many comments underneath this video about or references to the musical Hamilton, of course. So if you look at it, there's a lot of lyrics from that musical. But yeah, this is one of the top comments. I enjoyed it. In the end, Jefferson has beliefs, Burr has none. And other people commented this as well, but this was the one with most likes. So 1804, Pinckney. Oh, there's one of the Pinckney brothers, Charles Cotesworth Pinckney. Got destroyed in this election, by the way. Pinckney and King would both be renominated by the Federalists in 1808, making them the only presidential ticket to be renominated together after losing the previous election. Other presidential losers would be renominated, but all of them except Pinckney had a different running mate. So I had to look this up afterward, but yeah, it turns out it's true. And a fun fact that I did not know until I read it. Like, I learned so much from the comment section. I learned so much, and that's why I actually do read the comments. I don't understand YouTubers who don't read their comments. I mean, I get why you don't read all of them. There's too many, but yeah, you learn so much. 1808. John Ralph says, I prefer the first George Clinton, much more funk. So yeah, in case you didn't know, I have a running gag where anytime I mention the politician George Clinton, the extremely popular George Clinton, who is an anti-federalist and then later Democratic Republican, vice president. I first mentioned the singer, George Clinton, who's a funk singer who is known famously for having crazy hair and like crazy wigs, rainbow wigs, really entertaining fellow. And so it was just a joke I threw in there that was really bad. And then I just kind of kept that gag going. And so that's where this comes from. All right, I'll return to Super Chats here just briefly because I don't want to give this up completely. Scott, I didn't think the thought of another Trump presidency encyclopedias, then Elon Musk joined the campaign. Now it amps to 11. Oh, yeah, I mean, like, in my 2024 election video, I'm going to have to probably mention Elon Musk because he has had a pretty big influence on this election. Whoop. Sorry, Ron. Okay. Timothy. Hey, love your Supreme Court briefs. The Supreme Court just permitted Virginia to continue their voter roll purges 6-3 without a stated reason. Is the Supreme Court allowed to make rulings without giving opinions? Yes, they are, unfortunately. Yes, they are. I was not a fan of this, as you could imagine, and was definitely disappointed to read this today. DJ Renaissance. I saw in the news there's a possibility that Trump could win the popular vote, but lose the Electoral College to Harris. Your thoughts? Big fan from Canada. That would be amazing, honestly, because it's the best of both worlds. Trump doesn't get elected. Harris does, which I prefer. Also, finally, Republicans realize the Electoral College sucks because it finally screws them over. So I think it would be great. Yeah, I'd be totally fine with that happening. Okay, 1812. This is my least viewed presidential election video. I guess it was the worst video I made, worst presidential election video I ever made. So 1808 didn't do very well either. But yeah, this one didn't even break 200,000 views. I don't know. I guess people are just sick of 1812 because of that war. I don't know. But Patriot Mapper, a lot of good comments by that user, by the way. But they said, DeWitt Clinton trying to make everybody happy, be like, hey, BB, how you doing? Turns around to another girl. Hey, BB, how you doing? So yeah, this is in reference to the fact that DeWitt Clinton was the type of campaigner to say one thing to one audience and then say the opposite thing to a different audience. So, this is before mass media, before the telegraph even. You had him campaigning in different parts of the country where people clearly had different political opinions. And so he would just like tell one group something, promise them one thing that he knew other groups would not like to hear. And then those other groups, he would just say something entirely different. He was actually a masterful campaigner, DeWitt Clinton was. And so this election was a lot closer than the first one Madison ran in because of that. So that's what that comment's in reference to. 1816. If Rufus King became president, he would have been called President King. Yeah, a lot of people commented this as well. It would have been pretty amazing. 10 out of 10 comment there. Thank you, Coaster Boss. 1820. Oh, yeah. Another easy win. James Monroe himself commented this. Something that's just fascinating to me about James Monroe is that he was so freaking popular when he was alive. He was somebody who, if they had opinion polls back then, would have been polling 75, 80% probably. He had people on his staff, people in his cabinet from all political backgrounds. He's wanted to work with everybody. He was not partisan. He wasn't a hack. There was only one party really at the time anyway. The Federalist Party by 1820 had completely disintegrated, and you just had Democratic Republicans. But you could see some maneuvering going around, starting to happen because of the differences on how the federal government should respond to the Panic of 1819, because that was like the first just really devastating recession that the country had. The early years, United States was just growth economically. And then, oh, crap. What should the federal government do? Was the central bank not doing what it was supposed to? Was Alexander Hamilton wrong all along? And so you had some minor disagreements about the role of government start to develop. What did James Monroe do? He heard them all. And it's something that, I think every president should do. You should have, all political opinions around you at all times. You shouldn't silo yourself off from different opinions. And so I think he was smart to do that. And then generally just a likable guy. He was also a handsome fellow, so attractive to the ladies and some men, I would assume. I think that if he was around today, he probably would be fairly popular as well. I mean, he was he was personable. But guess what? Today, history has mostly forgotten him. So it just shows you that, even if you're extremely popular when you're alive, doesn't mean you're going to be remembered after you die. So 1824 was one of my favorite elections to make a video about, write about, learn about, and talk about to this day. I love this election. Really fascinating. Really unfortunate that Andrew Jackson got screwed over with this one. We all have our opinions about Andrew Jackson, but undoubtedly got screwed over by this one. So I had actually two favorite comments for this video. The first one from Sam saying, Jackson, so I won the most electoral votes, right? Henry Clay, yep. Jackson, and also the largest number of population voted for me? Henry Clay, mm-hmm. Jackson, then that democratically makes me president, right? Clay, makes sense to me. Jackson, so make me president. Clay, nah. Yeah, Henry Clay, who was running against him, also Speaker of the House, a lot of influence in Congress. He did whatever he could to make sure that Andrew Jackson was not president, because it did go to the House of Representatives, had to vote on it because there was nobody got to the majority of electoral votes. So even though Andrew Jackson had a plurality of the votes, nobody got to the majority of electoral votes, and that's why it was a four-way race. You had all four of these candidates that won electoral votes, and the top two, it was between John Quincy Adams and Andrew Jackson. The House of Representatives ended up choosing John Quincy Adams, even though he got less votes than Andrew Jackson in the popular vote. It led to a lot of Andrew Jackson supporters being very upset, and they accused accused Henry Clay specifically of conducting a, quote, corrupt bargain. That's how the press reported it. It was a corrupt bargain because Henry Clay knew that preventing Andrew Jackson from getting in there was good, not only because he hated Jackson, but also because he could be the Secretary of State for John Quincy Adams, and then that's almost a shoo-in to be the next president. Little did he know, Henry Clay would never be president, even though he ran 5 times. And then the next comment I have to point out is just a notable comment because this is from my friend Will of the channel Exploring History. This was 9 years ago, and his comment is a historical moment because this is the first time him and I interacted on the internet, and now we're good friends. I met him through YouTube. This is how we met. This is literally our first exchange was in the comment section underneath this video. He said, dude, you were totally right. Were we separated at birth? Oh, I guess the first interaction was I commented underneath one of his videos saying, hey, we would probably get along well with the content we cover or something like that. I don't remember exactly what I said, but the first time he responded was this. Says, dude, you were totally right. Were we separated at birth? I'll show my cousin this channel for sure. Keep in touch, man. We kept in touch. We're still friends all these years later, 9 years later. And I responded, I'll definitely keep in touch. So I just thought that was a kind of a cool snapshot of the beginning of a friendship with him. So 1828, Jackson gets in there. As Chris 3 says, probably that was the first presidential election that used Russia as ammo for mudslinging. So to explain that, when Jackson ran the second time, part of their campaign was to attack John Quincy Adams for doing bad stuff while he was in Russia. And they're trying to make a reference to Russia in terms of like later on with Trump. But yeah, when he was minister to Russia, John Quincy Adams reportedly got involved with some kind of sale of a slave in Russia. The evidence is pretty shaky. It probably didn't happen, but that's what he was accused of. Or that he was like, he oversaw, he knew about it. He could have prevented it from happening and he didn't do anything. Yeah. That's why this comment came up here. So yeah, it's good. Yeah. 1832. This is another 4-way race. That's kind of small. I'm going to bring that bigger so we can all see it better. Jackson be like 1824. So that's how it's going to be like, huh? Okay. I'm going to come back and get what's mine. And you will be sorry then. 1828. I told you I'd be back. You ain't stealing the win from me this time. Now y'all going to learn how Jackson play politics, son. 1832. Oh, you people think you can stop me? You think there's an end to the Jackson train? You think this bank thing is going to actually happen? Well, I'm going to call up my boy Martin down here. Call my boy Martin down here. And this time I want to get more votes than you people could ever believe. And then 1837, cheese for everyone, because that's the after the cheese at will at the White House, famously. But yeah, like he just became more and more popular, even though so many people were against him in the beginning in terms of the establishment candidates, the ones tied to the Virginia elites. And then there's another comment there showing that, yes, Exploring History, Will, my friend Will again, saying almost 2,000. That's in reference to, that's when I released this video, I was almost at 2,000 subscribers. And I responded, it only took me 6 years to get this far. So I just thought that was also notable. All right, if you're just joining me, I'm going through my favorite comments underneath my presidential election videos. I'll try to respond some more here to some super chats. Zaddy, what is the most dangerous logical fallacy? For me, it's appeal to authority. If Charles Barkley says someone is a bad player, I think they are too. Charles Barkley is someone else I would totally love to have as a president, by the way. I think he would make a wonderful president. I'm not even joking. I know you think I'm joking. I'm not even joking. I would say appeal to authority also. Yeah, because that's just blind faith into like what somebody is saying just because there's some kind of authority figure, which means that they can abuse their power. Yeah, I think that's probably a good one. I'd have to think more about that, though. Yeah, that's a good question, man. Zaddy. Hello, Indu. Good to see you here. If you could annihilate one law / SCOTUS ruling. Oh, wow, there are so many. I have a spreadsheets, like notes. I've kept track of this stuff before. Yeah, let me pull up let's see if I can pull up the document here, because I don't want to forget anything I brought up. Maybe let me just pick well, I did a video on worst laws, didn't I? Yeah, so I'll just pick. So a law that's still in effect. I guess the law that's still in effect that's on there would be the Controlled Substances Act. Yeah, I'd get rid of this Controlled Substances Act for sure. That's the first thing I think of. Thank you, Joseph. Brent Harris is already vice president, and the new Electoral Count Act ensures January 6th doesn't repeat. Yep. Theoretically, yes. If Trump loses, how does he disrupt the fragile Electoral College or other mechanisms during the two and a half month transition? You know what? He would just basically try to fire up the mobs again. And I think it wouldn't be, I'm hopeful it wouldn't be as bad, especially if the election is a more decisive victory for Harris. I mean, if it's really close, I'm worried. But if it's at least like it was with 2020 in terms of how big the victory is or more, I'm not as worried, if that makes sense. Goes. Why is James Polk viewed so favorably? He supported the expansion of slavery. He attacked Mexico. He attacked natives. He's more like an American Putin. Everything you just said is fair. I think he was actually a pretty rotten guy, pretty insensitive, not enlightened at all about power, all about American dominance, but very much so a man of his time. A lot of men like him in politics during that time. I think we can respect the fact that he got a lot done. He fulfilled promises that he made campaigning for president. He did exactly what he said he was going to do when he campaigned for president. People wanted him to do those things. Doesn't mean that it was right. Of course not. I think we can say both that he was an effective leader, but also a horrible imperialist who started a war with Mexico. Both are, I think, true for sure. Look at this. Jayhawk Life. Represent KU. Did you see Trump arriving in a garbage truck? No, I did not. I don't know what you're talking about. Think Vance stands a chance in 2028? I think he does. I think Vance, in many ways, is the future of the GOP. A lot of people, a lot of young people in particular, love Vance. I totally understand why. Even though Vance is clearly just in it right now for power, I don't think he believes half of what he says. I just think he wants to kiss Trump's butt. And then once Trump's out of the picture, then he'll probably say a bunch of different things. That's what I predict. Okay, I'll take one more, then I want to go back to my comments from underneath my videos. Sector 77 says, did you vote for Pat Buchanan in the 2000 election? I remember you saying you voted third party in that election and that you were very conservative. I considered Pat Buchanan. However, he was a little too racist for me. And so I ended up going with Ralph Nader, even though Ralph Nader was way left of me at the time. I also considered George W. Bush. For some reason, I never even considered Al Gore. It's probably because I was still pretty conservative. But yeah, Ralph Nader, the thing I liked the most about him in 2000 was the fact that he talked about ending corporate welfare. which actually, if you've seen my corporate welfare video, you'll know it's not something exclusive to one party or one political ideology. There are people on the right, left, center, from all political parties that all agree that corporate welfare is does a lot more harm than good. And so that was the thing that drew me to Ralph Nader in 2000. Okay, let's go back to the comments underneath my presidential election videos. 1836. Willie Person Mangum sounds like a name made up on the spot in a convenience store. That was my favorite comment by far. Shout out to Beast in it Music for dropping that one for 1836. And yeah, that was a real person who ran as a Whig in the presidential election of 1836. The election of 1840, Patriotic Conservative 422 says, I like how this video was able to cover both the election and entire presidency of William Henry Harrison. That's right. I pretty much mentioned his 30 days in the video. Just kind of, all right, this is what happened afterward. Might as well mention it. And it was apt. Very good comment there by Patriot Conservative 422. Okay, 1844, another interesting election. Speaking of James Polk, there he is. This is where the only time he ran, the only time he got elected. Fenkin Flames 7095 said, everyone, 2020 couldn't get more insane. Henry Clay, I'm Henry Clay, and I'm running for president. So this in reference to what I mentioned earlier, the fact that Henry Clay ran for president so many times, which, you know, he doesn't hold the record. William Jennings Bryan also ran, I believe, 5 times total, technically, if you want to get technical. Really more like 4 times, I guess. And then there was a Henry Stassen. Oh, gosh. How many times did he run for president? Not Henry, Harold Stassen. Harold Stassen ran for president. Ran how many times? I think it was 10. There's a video on C-SPAN here. Here, I'll just play this. He was just asked straight up, how many times have you run for president? I got to share the screen here. Hold on. Here we go.
Actually, until President Eisenhower asked me to go to Washington.
How many times have you run for president?
Well, never really run for president. I run for the Republican nomination a number of times. And it depends on how you count it. Sometimes in different primaries. And
how many times?
Counts. I never argue. A Dartmouth student gave the best name to it. Said she considered me a marathon runner for world peace.
And why do you do it?
Well, because it's from college days. I decided then that I would endeavor to make a contribution toward world peace. And that has been the key part of my public service.
I think it was at least 10 times that Harold ran, but yeah, that's when he was asked point blank. But I think, okay, 1848, Millard Fillmore. I'm totally not Alec Baldwin, I swear. So many comments underneath my video in 1848 because I show a picture of what Millard Fillmore looked like when he was a little bit younger. I guess I can share that with you too. And he does look like Alec Baldwin. It's kind of crazy. Let me see if I can find the exact picture I showed. If I just type in Millard Fillmore young, it should pop up. There it is. Well, it's kind of small, though. It's kind of small, but you can kind of see he kind of looks like Alec Baldwin. Now it's pixelated. There. Millard Fillmore. Yeah, isn't it crazy how there's doppelgangers like that in history? And I'm sure they're not related at all, or maybe they're related like 10th cousins or something like that. And then another comment that I had to add on here for the election of 1848. blew my mind. 245, 4 years. Time flies. Well, time to go on retirement. So that's a reference to James Polk as president. Got a lot done in those short 4 years that he was in office, and he goes on this big tour around the country to kind of celebrate his retirement. At the end of the tour, he gets sick, dies of cholera, and die. That's it. He basically gets no retirement. He was looking forward to it as well, and he was somebody who he was fairly young. He was, I think, in his early 50s at the time, so it's not like he was old. The election of 1852. Turnout began to decline. Voter turnout at 69.6%. Yeah, so something that I think a lot of Americans don't realize is that if you look at those presidential elections of the 1800s, the vast majority of them have way higher turnouts than today. A little caveat in there, though, this is before women had the right to vote, so you're automatically leaving out more than half of the population. But still, you had numbers like this. And to put it in perspective, the voter turnout for the 2020 election, I believe, was, 59%? I should remember this stuff. No, 60. Well, wait, there's two different numbers on here. Either 63% or 65. Let me just click on this one. Yeah, okay, we'll say between 62 and 65% in 2020, which was historically high. It was the highest voter turnout since 1900. So going back 120 years, the highest voter turnout. And a big reason why voter turnout was so high in 2020 was because people had mailed in their ballots, because it was a lot easier to mail in your ballots because of accommodations due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so it was a big deal that voter turnout was so high. And that was still at least 4 or 5 percentage points lower than it was in 1852. And in that video, I said, voter turnout was declining. This was notable. And it's still way higher than it typically is these days. By the way, I predict that voter turnout will be lower in 2024 compared to 2020. Probably at least 5 percentage points lower is what I'm predicting. The election of 1856. Beautiful Lewis Cass. Let's get a bigger view of that picture there. They were referring to that picture I included in this video. Lewis Cass, who had run for president previously, also was in the running here in this election. And it's simple, to the point. I like it. Tana says, have you noticed boys being more radicalized these days? I'm in Gen Z, and there's a huge divide between genders, with females being noticeably more liberal. Those darn, quote, alpha right-wing podcasts. I have noticed this somewhat. I think it's mostly because a lot of young men they don't have very many good role models. There's kind of this vacuum of good role models right now for them. And so I think that and then combine that with the culture has shifted. I think part of this is the effect of Donald Trump, actually. Whereas economically, things are not as good as they used to be. And so this leads to more desperation. So it used to be you just do well in school, you go to college, you get a degree, you're guaranteed at least to be in the middle class. Now, if you go to college, you have student loan debt. There's no guarantee you're going to have a good job. So a lot of young men are like, what's the point of going to college? Plus, school's hard anyway. It's just not worth it anymore. So they're looking for easier ways to make money. And there's a lot of overlap between that kind of hustle bro podcast environment, where a lot of them are just trying to sell you stuff or trying to sell you on how to sell, which is usually con artists, because they're not. I mean, it's always hilarious to me to see how many YouTube channels where there's somebody like, this is how you can become a huge YouTuber. And then you look at their channel and they only have like 50,000 subscribers. And you're like, well, if you are trying to teach others to be like a big time YouTuber, shouldn't you be like Mr. Beast and have 50 million subscribers at least? So that's always a red flag. And the same case with a lot of these con artists, or grifters, whatever you want to call them. They're pretenders. They talk a lot, but they don't really back it up with goods and services, you know. And so young men fall for these folks because they're kind of looking for easier ways to make money. Because again, they're desperate. And so this has kind of changed a lot of the culture. Thankfully, I do think most of them grow out of it. If I was, 12 years old instead of 42, or even 22, if I was 22, I could see myself falling for a lot of these podcast bro types. I could definitely see me falling for Jordan Peterson for sure. Because I just also combine with the fact that, you're still trying to figure things out in terms of critically thinking. Maybe you're not quite there yet in terms of sorting through all of the information. So that's how I explain it. Hopefully that made sense. Junie. Yeah, I remember Junie. Some Russian, and I think he meant interference. Lauren Chen Temple, Dave Rubin, and other grifters. Love your channel. Thank you so much. Yeah. That's when I found out about the fact that all these YouTubers were getting paid by Russians to promote Russian propaganda. This kind of made me angry for sure. No more debates with Destiny, please. Okay, well, I don't have debates with Destiny. I have discussions. I've only done it a couple times. Alex, would Trump carry out day one deportations if he wanted? I don't know. The guy lies so much that. You can stay out of this, creepy smart speaker. That was really creepy. Okay. Did you hear that? The smart speaker's talking to me. Anyway, no, he lies so much. So why would we believe him? I don't know. Like, he could. I just don't know what to believe with him. So I guess if you don't know if he's telling, like, the things I look at with Trump is what he has said privately. So what he privately said to John Kelly in particular worried me. Saying that, oh, Hitler wasn't all bad, and the fact that Kelly, based on his private interactions with him, came to the conclusion that, yeah, this guy likes authoritarianism. So that's, publicly, he'll just say whatever he thinks people want to hear, his supporters want to hear. But you pay closer attention to what he says privately. Jayhawk Life again. What's your thoughts on the Fort Hays state poll? I already mentioned this. Yeah, it's just one poll. I wouldn't look too much into it. Bill Meyer, I go back and forth with him. He's a left libertarian leaning person, so a lot of our views probably overlap. However, lately he's come across as just like this old fogey who's unwilling to change. And I think the pandemic really messed up his mind, just like it messed up Joe Rogan's mind and a bunch of other people's mind. Especially privileged people had a hard time with the pandemic. A lot of them did because they were told you couldn't leave your home. You couldn't do what you normally like to do, and so they didn't like that so much. Anir Ud Ajit, thank you. I don't think it's necessarily true that most of Rogan's viewers dislike Harris any more than they dislike Trump. r/Joe Rogan, so the subreddit on Reddit of Joe Rogan's podcast, are an eclectic bunch who poke fun at Joe himself as much as anyone else. I've noticed that, but I do think if you look at the comment section of Joe Rogan's videos, especially underneath the Trump video, you'll notice that a lot of them do lean to the right these days. Joseph, thank you. Do you think Trump or Cheney would have been more destructive for the U.S. and globally? So far, I think Dick Cheney we're talking about, not Liz. However, I worry about the future with Trump, like what would happen in a second term. Doesn't mean it will happen. No, but the fact that there's nothing holding him back this time is what I fear. Ashley, thank you. First ever super chat. Unrelated to current topic, but wanted to suggest making a video for Chicago versus peak population Chicago since it's the greatest city in the world. I just moved here from Raleigh. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you. I do love Chicago. I love it so much. I've made one video about Chicago specifically, but I would like to make more. Great suggestion. Thank you so much. All right, let's get back to it. We left off at the election of 1856. Now we're at the probably the most consequential, not probably, absolutely the most consequential election in American history, the election of 1860. I had 2 comments here that I enjoyed. First by Joshua Ford. Oh man, I wonder who's going to win. Edit. Holy beep. I did not see that coming. So just a fun little joke there about the fact that Abraham Lincoln won this election, who most historians say is the greatest president of all time. And then we have Obi-Wan Kenobi saying, South, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. I just love fake Abraham Lincoln quotes. Anytime someone shares them with me, I have a good chuckle. So I had to share that one as well. Again, not brought to you by Wonderbeat. Okay. The storm has not come yet. We are still good. 1864, the fact that Hannibal Hamlin refused to shave, quote, his thing off his neck arguably might have cost him a second vice presidential term. Of course, referring to his little neck beard that he has. Let's get a closer up look at that, shall we? Look at that thing. Look at that beaut of a neck beard. Thanks to Sandbox Productions for coming up with that. We'll keep it in this view here, nice and big. For the election of 1868, of course, Horatio Seymour famously was like, guys, why anybody but me at the Democratic convention? Not Democratic. He was Democratic, but this was they were liberal Republicans. Okay, the reason why we call the Republican Party the GOP, that stands for the Grand Old Party, was because of what happened beginning with the Grant administration into 1872. You had the Republican Party branched off into 2 different parties. You had the liberal Republican Party and the conservative Republican Party. Anyway, Ramio Baum says he absolutely didn't want the nomination. Mr. Beat, you speak like you knew each man personally in these series. Okay, I didn't know him personally. I didn't know Horatio Seymour personally. I wasn't alive in 1868. But based on everything I've read about him, he absolutely did not want to be president. Okay? The election of 1872, Jacob says, but he died. Geez, I did not see that coming. Literally sat up in my seat and felt my stomach stop. Lol. Yeah, so this is the only time in American history where you had a major party candidate right after the election's over with dies. And that would be Horace Greeley there on the right. He passed away just a few days after the election. Although it was before the electoral vote, so the electors were not delegated yet. Weirdly, Greeley, even though he was dead, still got 3 electors to vote for him, even though he died. So yeah, that's also notable. Election of 1876. Another really fun election to look at. Kind of scary to live through, though, I bet, for Americans during the time. Tilden got robbed. Excuse me, that was a nasty burp. Tilden definitely got robbed. This is I would say, the closest election. Remember, Tilden lost by 1 electoral vote. They didn't know the results of this election until a couple days before Inauguration Day in March. So you had 5 months of the country on the brink of another civil war. That's how close this was. Samuel Tilden won the popular vote. There were mob riots everywhere around the country, death threats to both candidates. Hayes was sitting at dinner at his house one night, and somebody threw a rock through his window, almost hit him and his family while they're eating dinner. This was a tense time, and this is just 11 years after the Civil War ended. So we were that close to a second Civil War, and thankfully it was avoided with a big-time compromise, the Compromise of 1877, as it's known today. But Unfortunately, that did end federal control over the South, which means Southern states were back to their racist shenanigans and discrimination of African Americans for many decades after this. But at least the country stayed together. Okay, anyway. So the comment is Pat Vanity 1262 says, if I interpreted the photo correctly, Pete Cooper had glasses with extra lenses on the sides to aid peripheral vision. Now that's the kind of outside the box thinking America needs. I need to show you what picture we're talking about here. Oh yeah, this is a great picture here. Let me share this for you all. Yeah, so he had those for peripheral vision. Pete Cooper is the oldest candidate to ever run for president. He was 85, I believe. All right, so let's get back to the... Uh-oh, starting to rain. I better get through these now. All right. 1880. I like how Hancock was literally a Union general closely linked to victory at Gettysburg and won the whole South. Very good observation there. Somebody who Hancock was, despite fighting against the Confederacy, all the former Confederates supported him, crazy enough. Election of 1884. I can't believe you did an entire episode about... I don't know that one. I'm going to unplug this Alexa here. That's the second time that happened. Dang smart speakers. I can't believe you did an entire episode about James G. Blaine and you didn't even use their catchy nickname for him. James G. Blaine, the Continental Liar from the state of Maine. Proving that name calling is an American art form. Yeah, this was a big missed opportunity. I regret that I did not include this in all the videos I had about Blaine, frankly. Election of 1888. John Smith said, Grover Cleveland concession speech. I'll be back. Election of 1892. To everyone watching after 2022, you know why you're here. Yeah, so this was when Grover Cleveland came back after he served a first term, lost re-election, came back 4 years later to run again, was the only president in American history to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. And so that's why this commenter said, and a lot of comments said this, that after Trump was planning on announcing again, Trump is now trying to be the second president in American history to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. Election of 1896. I got an ad before this video for Donald Trump saying, quote, this is the most important election ever. The irony. Yeah, so the fact that we had pretty much every politician says every election is like this. I actually think this one might be, to be honest. But in this video, the election of 1896 video, I mentioned that this is what they said. Basically, this is what politicians say before every presidential election. So 1900, Battle of the Williams II, the final William. So yeah, this is the Battle of the Williams, as they called it, William McKinley and William Jennings Bryan. 1904, the youngest man to become president, Theodore Roosevelt on one side, the oldest man on the main ticket, Henry G. Davis, he was running mate to Alton Parker, on the other side. This is something I should have absolutely brought up in the video, but I failed to realize, so another missed opportunity. 1908, Williams Jennings Bryan is like the Buffalo Bills. He gets to the finals, but always loses. Aw, poor William Jennings Bryan. 1912, another one of my favorite elections to look at. I highly encourage you watch this video. It's just a crazy election. Another 4-way race. Colin says, 1912, the year that a former president and a current president were defeated by a future president. Brilliant. Just brilliant. The rain's really coming down. If you can hear it, I don't know. Make sure this window's... Yeah. Okay, well, so far the power is staying on, so we're going to keep going here and finish this. Then I'll probably have to wrap it up because it is a little scary out. 1916, the grandfather of my best buddy used to say, quote, I voted for Woodrow Wilson because he kept us out of war, and the next summer I was in France. So this is I think this comment's so cool because it's like, hey, this is an actual person sharing personal history about a relative, or a relative's friend, I should say. But yeah, famously, Woodrow Wilson, a big reason why so many Americans voted for him in 1916 is because he kept the United States out of World War I, only to break that promise. The very next year, the United States entered the war in 1917. Jimmy says for the election of 1920, first election that women in all states could vote, and the candidates are named Harding and Cox. I'll just leave it at that. Election of 1924. That 1924 Democratic Convention was long. It was 103 ballots long. No convention after 1924 went more than 6 ballots. Yet again, another fun fact that I should have mentioned in the video. So thanks to PR Christman for bringing that up. Election of 1928. Happy negative 53rd birthday. So in this video, I mentioned it was my negative 53rd birthday because this election happened on November 6, 1928. So I just thought that was a clever, not clever, but just nice comment. We had 2 notable comments for the election of 1932. First by Peter, cool facial hair died with Wilson's election. Yep, very tragic. Although, if J.D. Vance becomes the new vice president, he has a beard. That's very exciting for me to finally have somebody with a beard back in the executive branch. Then we had Leek Frokies say FDR, Hoover is a socialist. Proceeds to become one of the most left-wing presidents in American history. Yeah, it was especially his running mate, James Nance Garner, who called Hoover a socialist, because remember, Hoover did want government intervention. He actually helped get legislation passed to kind of take over parts of the economy because that was at the beginning of the Great Depression. So, yeah. Election of 1936, the 46 states, let's vote for Roosevelt. His New Deal will save us all from the Depression. Vermont and Maine. We're about to do what is called a pro-gamer move. Yeah, so this is famously one of the biggest landslide victories in American history for a presidential election. FDR won 46 out of 48 states. Only 2 states Landon got. And I was looking at the county numbers just today. Alf Landon did not even win his home county in Kansas here. He was governor of Kansas. And his home county, Shawnee County, Topeka, Kansas, he didn't even win that. So it was quite the victory for Franklin Roosevelt in 1936. So great comment by Walker. Election of 1940. I got to make this bigger because I can't see it. George Washington, who has had some of the greatest comments underneath my presidential election videos of all times. This is just one. I think I included another one maybe, but you should check out all of George Washington 673's comments underneath these videos. It says, while most of the country shifted Republican in 1940, Maine and Vermont, the only 2 states Landon won in 1936, actually shifted Democratic, because both states had many people of British and French descent who wanted to help those countries in World War II. They didn't like the non-interventionist / isolationist message of Wendell Willkie. So yes, George Washington, 673, not the actual George Washington, mind you. Lots of great fun facts like that underneath a lot of my presidential election videos. This is just one of the many that they have shared over the years. And then also Rimfire 8217 says, something you left out was the civil rights movement at the time. Wendell Willkie was a vocal opponent of segregation and received endorsements from 2 major African-American newspapers, the Pittsburgh Courier and the Baltimore Afro-American. So yeah, this is something that I think most Americans are not aware of. The guy running against FDR in 1940 was less racist. more for civil rights, despite being a Republican. The parties were way different back then, by the way. A lot of racists in the Democratic Party in 1940, I should say, and FDR certainly did not want to alienate them. All right, 1944. I should mention that both of the major party candidates in this election, FDR and Dewey, were at one point governors of New York. I should mention that in 1844, both Polk and Clay were speakers of the House. I wonder what 2044 could be. So yeah, this is just an awesome comment. One of my favorites. So good job, Swag8483. I love this one. The election of 1948. Truman's face holding up Dewey defeats Truman newspaper is the original troll face. I think that's pretty accurate. It's one of my favorite pictures in American history. Him holding up like that smile on his face with holding up the headline right after it was announced that he was reelected. So yeah, good stuff. Also, the election of 1948 is just crazy. It's also one of my favorite ones to learn about. You know, this is the one where Trump, well, it's similar to 2016, but Truman, just like Trump in 2016, was a big underdog, was polling lower than Dewey by far until right before the election. So it was quite the comeback for Truman. Naughton2555 says in the election 1952 video, Adlai Stevenson 1952. Meh. I don't really want to run, but I will. Just for Truman. Yeah, Truman talks him into running. And then 1956, proceeds to run for president in 3 elections. Yeah, because technically he also ran in 1960 when he was around, I think 1964 is 1960 and 1964. He wasn't actively running, but people had brought his name up. But yeah, I thought that was a fun comment. And yes, this is the last time we had a re-election, or we had an election that was a rematch from the previous election. We almost had it this year until Joe Biden dropped out in July. So that would have been the first time since 1956. DTM Gamer 1019 says Stevenson loses badly in 1952 election. Also Stevenson, I'll effing do it again. Yes. And then Ziggy says, I love those signs at 38 seconds in. Welcome, Dick. Young Americans for Dick. Our pick is Dick. So yeah, those are all references to Tricky Dick, of course, the nickname for Richard Nixon, the vice president, running mate again in 1956 for Dwight Eisenhower. So a lot of people forget that Richard Nixon's nickname was Tricky Dick or just Dick. There's a whole movie about Richard Nixon, actually, about Watergate and everything, called just Dick. It's a name that's not really used much anymore, though, is it? Wonder why. Wonder what happened with that name. Election of 1960. Let me make this one bigger, too. It's another, can't really see it very well. Mario says Nixon and Kennedy both officially declined wearing makeup for the televised debate, but what Nixon didn't realize is that Kennedy had somebody apply makeup on him anyway. Then, only minutes before they went on air, Kennedy played a psychological game by waiting until the last possible second before he appeared on the stage, which threw Nixon off balance even further. I don't know if this is 100% accurate, but it's a fun fact. I think it's a great thing to kind of add. I think it also is a little bit overplayed how Nixon appeared to be sweaty and nervous on camera. I don't think that really has as big of an effect as people say it did, but it's still fun to talk about, the differences between perceptions of the debates that they had on TV versus the radio. Most people say that Kennedy looked a lot better on TV, but Nixon sounded a lot better on the radio. Yeah. Also one of the closest elections in American history. I mentioned that in my 5 closest elections in American history video. 1964, this was not. This was a landslide for Lyndon Johnson. Nick says, plays I Get Around by Beach Boys while showing Kennedy in the infamous car ride in Texas. I will tell you that was completely unintentional. I did not mean for that to happen. When I saw this comment, I was like, oh, crap. Did I do that? And that comment was 4 years ago. So yeah, like I didn't realize it. I was tired at the time. I truly did not mean, no disrespect to John F. Kennedy for that. Election of 1968. I asked my dad last year, who was a history teacher, if things were ever as bad as they were in 2020, post-Civil War. And without missing a beat, he says, quote, if we can make it through 1968, we can make it through anything. Smart dude. Obviously, if you're a history teacher, you know 1968 was one of the craziest years in American history, a very chaotic time, scary time to live through, not just because the Vietnam War was not going so well, but the Cold War was still raging around the world, plus turbulence at home, riots in the street. You had assassinations. You had Americans that were increasingly angry at each other. So I would say, yeah, it was not nearly as bad as 2020, although 2020 was definitely also a scarier time, no doubt. Looks like the rain is subsiding a little bit. Maybe I'll take a couple more super chats here. I feel bad. Why would you recommend The Rock? We don't need another entertainer politician. I hate to break it to you, Lyric, but all politicians are entertainers. That's my simple response to that. Night. But it's okay for Alex Soros to fund Kamala Walls. I don't know who Alex Soros is. Sorry. A. Looking at how things are going in the U.S., you can't but feel like you're watching an empire crumbling. Would you say the United States is in its last years as a powerful nation? No, because it still has the strongest economy in the world. So, but we really won't know until many years in the future, will we? So it's just too early to say. But I think if you compare the United States to the rest of the world, we're still in a really good position right now. I know there's a lot of fear about the instability that's going on in the Middle East right now. I mean, we got through the Cold War. This is nothing new. We just had some quiet years there for the last 35 years, and things are a little bit crazier now. So I get why people are scared about global conflicts, but we still have a dominant military force that has a presence around the world, which I personally disagree with, but you know, for better or for worse, it's there. Also a dominant economy. So from the UK, people hate Trump. Keir Starmer op opinion. I don't know much about Keir Starmer. I don't even know how to pronounce his name, her name, their name. I have no idea who that is. I've heard of them. That's about it. I'm sorry. Prairie fire. I don't understand why my fellow farmers don't remember the impact of Trump's trade war on our industry. I tell you why, because they got subsidies, because it was hurting them so much. They got Congress passed a relief package for farmers. And so then they're still like, oh, I guess it's not so bad. I'm getting checks from the government. They got handouts. That's why if Dan Osborne wins in Nebraska, I feel like more Great Plains will follow with independence thoughts. Yes, I think watch closely what happens with Dan Osborne in Nebraska. He is running for Senate as an independent, and he's very much a populist, more aligned with Democrats, but also like on some issues aligned with Republicans. So I think it's really a fascinating race, and I think he's actually has a good chance to win, to upset the Republican there, Deb Fischer. Why was James Madison so popular even after the Panic of 1819? You mean James Monroe? Mostly because of the effects of the era of good feelings, a time of increased patriotism after defeating Britain after the War of 1812, which wrapped up in 1815. So those last 5 years between 1815 and 1820, everybody was feeling good. The Federalists were gone. Their party had disintegrated. Like I sang in my song about James Monroe, it didn't last very long, unfortunately. Ben, we may have different political views, but I still love your content. Keep it up. Trump 2024. Well, thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. Alan, Mr.Beast, have you ever thought about a different presidential election like Mexico? Oh, I think you meant series. Considering we went from fighting Spanish, French, and a civil war over dictatorship is quite chaotic, to say the least. I'm not an expert when it comes to that stuff. And so I would have to pass the torch to someone else to complete that. All right, let's go back to the elections here. Election of 1972. Hermes Soldados says, I am surprised how Nixon didn't grab this chance to make his slogan, quote, McGovern can't govern. Well, yeah, right? I mean, the slogans write themselves. It's genius. I guess he didn't really need to, though. He kicked his butt. This is one of the most lopsided presidential elections in American history. 1976. University of South Carolina. That's not the actual official university, by the way. The last election where the Democrat was pro-life and the Republican was pro-choice. Carter later became pro-choice. Definitely. This is it was the late 70s when all of a sudden the Republicans were like, we're going to make this an issue. We're going to be pro-life, where they were split before. And yeah, Carter ran as a pro-life candidate. And at the time, Ford was pro-choice. Pretty crazy. Times have changed. And it was less than 50 years ago. The election of 1980, Sean says, Ronald Reagan, the actor? And who's the vice president? Jerry Lewis? I suppose Jane Wyman is the first lady and Jack Benny is Treasury Secretary? Of course, this is a reference to Back to the Future, the trilogy, when Doc Brown first learns from Marty McFly from the future. You know, Doc Brown is in the year 1955, and Marty McFly comes from 1985 to tell him that Ronald Reagan is the president. And the 50s, Ronald Reagan was just an actor. So Doc Brown did not believe him that the actor, Ronald Reagan, could actually be president. So yeah, great comment by Sean. The election of 1984 is the first presidential election I was alive for. I don't remember it, but yes. Reagan destroyed Mondale. That's an actual quote. That's what I said in this video. And then children cheering at Mondale's utter destruction. Yeah, so I always have kids cheering after I announce in the video who won the election. And the way I worded it this time, combined with the children cheering, was pretty amusing. I hadn't really thought of it. That's one of those things, again, where I didn't notice it until after the commenters noticed or brought my attention to it. The election of 1988. Oh, this is who was this? Who is this? 32 years later, Joe Biden is still running for president. You hear that thunder? Ooh, that's a perfect timing there. Yeah, I commented this. I was pretty clever, wasn't I? Because this is the first time Joe Biden was running for president. So I was pretty proud of myself. So I included that comment there. Did you hear that thunder? Did you hear that? Yeah. Everybody heard that. Okay. Oh, I skipped over a couple here. No, one. Okay. One of my favorite elections, the election of 1992. Gandhi the Great 328 says, when the Berlin Wall fell, his staff urged him to fly to Berlin. Bush replied, quote, and what would I do? Dance on the wall? This is a German moment, not an American one. Leave it for them. I respect that. So this is something I didn't know that he said. I looked it up later, and sure enough, he did, according to different accounts. But yeah, like pretty cool quote. Pretty cool. I respect that sentiment as well about George Bush Sr. The election of 1996, Bob Dole using the boomer insults decades before it was popular. What a king. Yeah, so he was Bob Dole when he was saying negative things about his main opponent, Bill Clinton, in 1996. He referred to him as a boomer. And so, yeah, that was a... Back then, you know, boomers were like young and hip. You know, they were supposed to be the cool, up and coming politicians. But Bob Dole, you know, member of the, I think, silent generation or maybe older. Great. No, he was greatest generation. He served in World War II. What am I talking about? Yeah. So the greatest generation are like these baby boomers, talking trash about him and stuff. All right, the election of 2000, the first election that I actually voted in. One of the craziest elections in American history. The Supreme Court had to step in to stop the recount. George W. Bush lost the popular vote, still wins the election. It all came down to 537 votes in Florida, one state. Bush got all the Florida electoral votes, wins the election. We haven't been the same ever since. Andrew's comment was, quote, "I do not think our troops should be used for nation building." George W. Bush. Probably the most famous and legacy binding quote he ever had. Yep, that's something that so many people don't know, is that when Bush ran in 2000, he ran for a more non-interventionist foreign policy. Like, he ran on, we shouldn't be nation building. We shouldn't be getting involved in wars around the world like Bill Clinton does, getting involved with wars in Europe and Africa, Asia. What are we doing here? We need to shut down these military bases. And then, as we know, after 9/11 happened, Bush Jr. did the opposite. Started a big reason why the war on terrorism started. Got us involved in a war in Afghanistan that lasted over 20 years, the longest war in American history. More infamously, the Iraq War, which I have a video about, and I was... So it's something that I lived through. I didn't actually serve in that war. I know people that did, but something that I was very against when I was in college, when we first went into that war. And so it was hard for me to not be biased when I was making that video. But yeah, that's one of the biggest things that hurt his legacy. George W. Bush is his foreign policy. And here, that's an actual quote for him when he ran for president in 2000. 2004. Probably one of the comments that made me laugh the most was this one. Mr. Beat talking about the horrific tragedies of 9/11. Background music. Yeah, Usher, Ludacris. So I was playing the background music for that video was the Usher song, Yeah. Because that was like one of the big hits of 2004. And I was like, oh yeah, this is fun. Now this is the instrumental. So yeah, that was a weird, kind of jarring mix. Probably in retrospect, again, a bad choice for music, but it led to a lot of funny comments like this. Yeah. The election of 2008. A lot of people loved my choice for music for this one, but it was a British band, Coldplay. Come on. But yeah, Finch Borat says, to me, this was the last normal election we had. People weren't fighting and killing each other over who they supported/voted for in 2008. And I think this really hit home to me. I really thought a lot about this comment, and there's other comments like this as well, because, yeah, it does seem like a much different time. This is the last election where I remember where I was like, oh, both candidates are pretty great, both of the major party candidates. Although I still voted third party, I should say, during this election, but still, living in Kansas. But yeah, it was definitely a much simpler time compared to the 2020s for sure. So, and at the time, Obama was this transformative, inspirational figure. I think a lot of what you're seeing now in politics is because of these high hopes we had for Obama and his failures, frankly. And I think he knows that. I think when he goes around and does speeches now, he knows, like, I didn't fulfill all my promises, and we still have a lot of work to do. And I think for the rest of his life, Obama's going to be like, what else can I do to make up for this? Because clearly there's still a lot of upset people in this country, and there's still a lot of work to be done. So make this bigger so you can see it better. The election of 2012, 2 comments notable for this one. First of all, Stewie Griffin, the Stewie Griffin, 12341, says, I can't believe this was considered an unusually bitter campaign. 2016 and 2020 make Obama and Romney look like lovers. That's another thing to bring up. Yeah, like this was, you look back at the debates and the campaigns of both, and they were very tame compared to later elections. And Nikki said it was the first election to be realized as an epic rap battle of history. Speaking of which, they just released their new video, the Harris-Trump epic rap battle, with a cameo by Theodore Roosevelt. Pretty awesome. Although overall, it was kind of meh. But it's still cool to see them release that new episode. The election of 2016, waiting for the American presidential election of 3000 when you cover Nixon's return to politics. Yeah, so this is clearly a reference to one of the greatest shows of all time, Futurama, when Nixon returns as president of the world. But it's just his head, of course. They bring him back to life, not his body. They have the body of Spiro Agnew, though, who carries Nixon's head around. And together they make a good team ruling the world as autocrats. Oh boy, it's a funny show. All right, I think the storm is actually passing. I think we have survived the storm, so we'll just wrap this up here. The election of 2020. It's the last video I released. Emperor Tiger Star. Shout out to one of the greatest YouTube channels around, Emperor Tiger Star. It's good to be friends with him. Commenting shortly after I posted this video. Seeing this in past tense is weird. Yeah, it was making a history video about something that just happened 3 months prior was definitely difficult. And typically I don't do that, but there was a lot of anticipation, a lot of hype, a lot of momentum I didn't want to lose. And so I did feel some pressure to release it sooner than I probably should have, especially considering what happened with all the election denialism and January 6th and all that. So, hello. My daughter just came in. I think she has a message for me. Oh, okay. You want me to read this on the air?
Yeah.
That's breaking news. Kennedy has been shot. No, I was kidding. Oh, okay. I have to read this. So Brody will stop. Read this so Brody will stop welching for a month for everybody's sanity. Inside jokes are great. So hopefully you got that, Brody. The other comment for the 2020 election video, thank you for that news bulletin, is SDAA 7550 says, can't believe Mr. Beast has been alive for over 230 years just so he can recap the presidential elections. That's right. And I'll be alive for the next 230 years to get the next 60, because we're here in 6 days. We are reaching the 60th presidential election in American history. It's very exciting. Oh boy. So right when I said Joe Biden has been running for president for 32 years, there was major thunder, but the storm is passing now. I think I can get through the rest of the super chats and then we will wrap this up. Thanks for being here. If you haven't checked out my presidential election series, I've linked it below. The Three Railway Engine says, video idea. If each of the U.S. presidents were alive today or maybe 10 years ago, which political party would they be in? I love it. I love it. Thanks for the suggestion. Logan says, thoughts on Trump and McDonald's? I thought it was a good marketing strategy. I mean, at this point, though, how many minds are you really going to change? I think people have already made up their minds on the candidates. So, and I think in the future we'll look back on it kind of as cute, but right now people that don't like Trump are it's not going to change their minds at all. Tom, hey, great stream so far. Thanks for hanging out with us. Well, thanks for being here. Subscribe to Tom's Table, everyone. Walk Talk 21. Hello, Mr. B. Was wondering where you rank Dwight Eisenhower among presidents. What about him makes him so highly respected among both sides? If he had done more for civil rights, would he be S tier? There's a few things where he messed up on foreign policy, letting the CIA overthrow democratically elected leaders, for one thing. Also, shenanigans with like Operation Wetback and the Lavender Scare, and but overall, he's my second favorite president of all time after George Washington. If you want to learn more, I made a whole video about Dwight Eisenhower, and I explain more in that video. So, Cesar, as a DACA recipient, should I be concerned about a Trump second term? Absolutely. Absolutely. You should tell all your friends who are also DACA recipients to be concerned. Leak, what are your thoughts on nuclear energy and politics? I think, sadly, most politicians are still too afraid of nuclear energy, and I think that needs to change. We need more nuclear energy. I think they need to get over it. Oh my gosh. Yes. One of the first people to comment on my videos, my presidential elections videos, was this person you're seeing right now, Jonah 21354. They were only 11 or 12 when they commented. So how old are you now then? Like, you're at least like, you're an adult now. This is crazy. Yes. Thanks for being back here. That's cool. Yeah. You go back to the videos. Like some of your comments are actually pretty highly ranked. Thanks for being one of my earliest viewers. I appreciate you so much. You were here in the early days. I will never forget that. Lisa08 says, if Trump is serious about these massive deportations, then we need to protect our friends and neighbors and make sure they don't get shipped to camps. Yeah. I mean, if he's serious, just, be on alert, be ready. It could happen. He's been talking about it more and more on the campaign trail. Logo Lee says, what happened if Trump wins but dies before January 6th? Well, then that's what JD Vance hopes will happen. He'll be the president. JD Vance will be. Greetings from Ukraine. Love your content. Oh, I wish you the best in Ukraine. I hope you're staying safe. Wow. Daniel, what are your thoughts of Tim Walz? Do you think the VP position's as high as he'll want to get in politics? Also appreciate the weather update. Shout out from Independence, Missouri, not too far away. It's probably headed your way by this point. I'm a big fan of Tim Walz, but I'm biased because, he's a former social studies teacher and he just seems like a nice, relatable, down-to-earth guy. And he reminds me of a lot of guys I used to work with when I taught at the high schools. I agree with him on most policies, and I don't think he's really like JD Vance in terms of he doesn't like have this thirst for power like JD Vance does. He kind of stumbled into this. Even when he first ran for Congress, a lot of people had to talk him into it. It's not like this was something he wanted to do his whole life. Same thing with being a governor. Is this somebody who stumbled into politics? I think those are the better politicians, the ones who don't try to be politicians. They're not career politicians. They kind of stumble into it by accident. I think that's why I usually admire folks like Walz more. What are your thoughts about Kansas's potential as a swing state in future presidential cycles? Well, we were a swing state before, so it's, and other states are going to change as well. Remember, California was a swing state not that long ago, so. Two-state solution that are feasible, issues preventing. I prefer a one-state solution. If you just Google it, that's what I think would work better as long as there are strong constitutional protections for Palestinians, preferably enforced by a international agency like the United Nations or some other, I just think at this point, two-state solution it's more like politicians just say that, but they don't really think about what that would really look like. Peace Corps volunteer historian here. Make a video on it. I've been wanting to make a video about the Peace Corps for so long. It's been on my master list I have of video ideas for so long, so I will bump it up thanks to you saying that. I like your username in PFP, by the way. Thank you, Sandy and Express. Brock, Mr. Beat, you're my inspiration to be a history teacher. Currently in university. Keep up the great work. Much love and respect from Ontario, Canada. Well, thank you so much, Brock. A lot of Canadians here in the chat tonight. And then it looks like we're about caught up here finally. Comic Fan, which party do you think will win the House and Senate? My predictions for the House and Senate, I think the Democratic Party will narrowly win the House, and I think the Republicans will win the Senate. So it will be a split Congress. Probably not a lot will get done these next 2 years, I predict. But I still do predict that Harris will win the presidency, so who knows? Maybe some things will get done. All right. So everybody, thanks for being here. We got through a storm together, and I just heard thunder again. Okay. But yeah, everybody vote if you can, if you're at least 18. I don't care. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I'm surprised I didn't get more questions about my problems with Donald Trump. But anyway, that's going to be a future video. I'm gonna have to do some more reflecting and more reading. Especially, I want to read more about, presidents like Franklin Pierce and James Buchanan and Andrew Johnson and even Warren Harding, because I need some more perspective on his presidency. Living through it's a whole new thing, and you kind of lose historical perspective with your bias on the present. So I have to be careful before I know I said he's F tier, but I still it's weird to be definitive about somebody who's seeking power right now. Oh, another super chat. Thank you. El Zorro Pepe. I'm Colombian and I appreciate the way you teach American history. I love you. Oh, gracias, El Zorro. I love your country, by the way. Colombia is a wonderful country. Okay. I have another one. Oh my gosh. Puerto Rican here. The Oshawott King. Puerto Rican here. I appreciate all the kind messages that me and my community received after the recent events. I love Puerto Rico. Yes. I hope to visit soon. My friend went there last year and he was just raving all about it. Yeah. All right. And hopefully Puerto Rico can become a state, dadgummit. Okay. So thanks for being here. Vote and have a wonderful rest of your week. Also, happy Halloween. All right. Bye-bye.